Did you hear? Shu Tianjiao from the class next door just pre-ordered a bacon egg. Her family spent a fortune on it. A pseudo-legendary right from the jump. Can you believe it? While we're all hoping for a decent starter, she's starting her journey with a future Dragon King. I guess that's what happens when your dad is the richest man in Yunhai City. For the rest of us, we're stuck with whatever the school gives us for free. If we're lucky, we get a Pidgey or a Weedle to help us scrape through the exams. A Weedle? I'd honestly rather have a Rattata. I stood in the shadows of the back door of Class 3, listening to my classmates at Yuchi High. The room was loud enough to shake the ceiling. Everyone was buzzing, their faces flushed with excitement as they discussed their future partners. I rubbed my throbbing temples, feeling completely lost. The faces around me were familiar, but the words coming out of their mouths made no sense. Bagon, starters, Pidgey, those were creatures from POKÉMON, a game from my past life. We were less than 100 days away from the college entrance exams. Shouldn't we be cramming classical Chinese and math? Suddenly, a massive wave of memories crashed into my brain. A sharp pain shot through my skull, forcing a groan from my lips as I leaned against the doorframe for support. Half a minute later, my breathing slowed. The confusion cleared. I realized the truth. I had traveled to a parallel universe. A century ago, this world was just like Earth until space began to warp. Mysterious realms descended, bringing with them magical creatures that could control the elements. They were called Pokémon. At first, humanity tried to suppress them with weapons, but we failed miserably. Territories were lost, and we were forced behind high walls. Then, everything changed. Humans invented Pokeballs and discovered that our mental strength could resonate with these creatures. The profession of Pokémon trainer was born. Now, trainers stood at the top of the social pyramid. A top-tier champion could protect an entire nation. I felt my heart race. In my past life, I was a hardcore Pokémon fan. To me, this world was paradise. But the excitement didn't last long. Reality hit me like a bucket of ice water. The entrance exams were split into two parts, theory and combat. I wasn't worried about the theory. I was a top student here, and my past knowledge gave me an edge. The real problem was the combat exam. To participate, you needed a Pokémon. And Pokémon were expensive. My family was ordinary. My parents' salaries barely covered our bills. Buying a high-aptitude egg was out of the question. My only hope was the school's distribution ceremony this afternoon. By law, every senior in a public high school gets one free egg. But free usually meant common, weak species like Caterpie or Pidgey. I bit my lip. It wasn't that those Pokémon couldn't become strong, but I only had 3 months. With average resources, beating someone with a Bagon or a Charmander was impossible. The starting lines were miles apart. Was I destined to be a bottom-tier worker even in this world? Just as I was searching for a way out, a crisp, mechanical voice rang in my head. Ding. Host soul fluctuations detected as stable. World laws adapted. Fate script system officially activated. A system? I suppressed a surge of joy. I knew exactly what this meant. This was the ultimate cheat code for a transmigrator. What can you do? I thought. This system allows the host to view the fate and life scripts of yourself, others, and Pokémon, the voice replied. It explained the grading system. Gray for misfortune, white for mediocre, green for outstanding, blue for excellent, purple for king, and gold for legendary. By seeing the scripts, I could seize opportunities and avoid disasters. I could even earn fate points to trade for rare items. My eyes lit up. This was a game changer. In an era where picking a Pokémon egg was like playing a blind box lottery, I had X-ray vision. Show me my own script, I commanded. A light blue screen appeared before my eyes. Name, Lin Yuan. Fate, white, destined cripple. Life path, a life of hardship ending in misery. Current luck, low. Recent turning point, in 30 minutes, you will pick a Pidgey egg from the school hatchery. Due to poverty, the Pidgey will grow slowly and fail to evolve within a month. You will fail the combat exam. Final outcome, after graduation, you join a low-level wilderness scavenging team. You are attacked by a swarm of Beedrill and become paralyzed from the waist down. You spend the rest of your life in the slums. Cold sweat soaked my back. Paralyzed? A life in the slums? If not for this system, that was my inevitable future. In this world, the fate of an ordinary person was as fragile as glass. I reached out and gripped the doorframe until my knuckles turned white. I wouldn't let it happen. I would change my fate, starting with that egg. The school bell rang, snapping me out of my thoughts. I walked back to my seat just as our homeroom teacher, Zhao Kuan, entered the room. He was a professional trainer, and his partner, a muscular Mac Hoke, followed close behind him. "Class," Zhao Kuan said, his voice booming. "Today is the start of your journey. I'm taking you to the hatchery. You'll each have 30 minutes to choose an egg. Remember, it's all about intuition. Once you pick, there's no going back. Everyone line up." The classroom erupted. Students scrambled into the hallway, but I stayed calm, walking at the back of the pack. "Hey, Lin Yuan, why the long face?" A heavy arm slammed onto my shoulder. I turned to see Zhou Hao, my best friend. He was tall, loud, and came from a slightly better background than me. "Just thinking about what to pick," I said with a small smile. "With our luck, we'll be lucky to get a feisty Rattata," Zhou Hao sighed, though he quickly grinned. "But hey, maybe I'll get lucky and find a starter egg hidden in there." I looked at him and thought, "System, show me Zhou Hao's script." The screen flickered to life. Name, Zhou Hao. Fate, blue, fire-type elite. Life path, born with an affinity for fire energy. A late bloomer. Current luck, radiant. Wealth is coming. Recent turning point, tomorrow afternoon. His ancestral home will be designated as a key commercial development zone. He will receive 30 million in compensation. Final outcome. His father uses the money to buy a king-tier Charmander egg. Zhou Hao becomes the youngest fire-type Elite Four member in the country at age 35. I almost choked. 30 million? Elite Four? This was a protagonist script. "What's wrong, Lin Yuan? Why are you staring at me like that?" Zhou Hao asked, looking weirded out. "Nothing," I said, patting his shoulder. "Just don't forget me when you're rich and famous." "You're acting weird today," he muttered, rolling his eyes. I looked ahead, feeling a mix of envy and genuine happiness for my friend. Fate was unfair, but now I had the power to see the cards before they were dealt. Zhou Hao had a windfall coming, and I was going to find the diamond in the rough in that hatchery. I walked with the crowd down the tree-lined path toward the Four Feathers hatchery. This was it, the moment that would decide our futures. I didn't waste any time. As we walked, I used the system to scan the students around me. Name, Li Chong. Fate, white mediocre. Recent turning point, picks a cater pie egg, fails the exams, and goes home to inherit his family's bun shop. Name, Wang Li. Fate, white mediocre. Recent turning point, picks an oddish egg, gets into a vocational college, and becomes a junior breeder. Name, Zhang Wei. Fate, green, outstanding. Recent turning point, finds a polywag egg with a hidden inheritance move, barely scrapes into a top-tier university. After scanning a few more, I realized the harsh reality of this world. Most people were white, destined for a life of mediocrity. A few were green, the elites. Someone like Zhou Hao, with a blue fate, was 1 in 10,000. Zhang Wei's polywag was a decent find, but a green-tier opportunity wasn't enough for me. I had the system. I didn't want to just scrape into a good school. I wasn't going to steal from my classmates, and I wouldn't touch Zhou Hao's destiny, but I needed something better. I needed a miracle. The 5-minute walk felt like seconds. Soon, a massive building with a glass dome appeared. This was the high school's Pokémon hatchery. Our teacher, Zhao Kuan, stopped at the entrance to talk to a man in a white lab coat. The man's name was Sun Jia, the hatchery manager. He looked to be in his late 20s, wearing black-rimmed glasses and a look of pure boredom. "Students, this is researcher Sun," Zhao Kuan announced. "He will open the doors. Remember, you can look, but once you touch an egg, it's yours. No exchanges." "Understood. Understood," we shouted in unison. Sun Jia yawned and swiped his ID card. With a heavy mechanical hiss, the alloy doors slid open. The scent of damp earth and fresh water hit me instantly. Inside, the hall was vast and climate-controlled, filled with hundreds of rows of incubators. There had to be over 1,000 eggs in there. "Go," someone yelled. The formation broke instantly. Students scrambled into the hall, eyes red with greed. But I stayed still. I was staring at Sun Jia. As the doors opened, I had reflexively scanned him. The information on the screen made my heart hammer against my ribs. Name, Sunja. Fate, green. Recent turning point. In 3 days, he will buy a lifeless Magikarp egg from the water-type section for a low price out of pity. Hidden opportunity. The egg is a rare, primal shiny variant with ancient beast bloodlines. Potential, champion tier. Final outcome. Sunja hatches a golden Magikarp. He tries to raise it with standard water energy, causing a bloodline conflict. The Magikarp never evolves. 2 years later, he sells it to the black market for a fortune. Champion tier? Primal? Shiny? I could barely breathe. In this world, potential was ranked: common, elite, gym, subtop, top tier, and champion. A top tier potential was enough to make Zhou Hao a member of the Elite Four. A champion tier? That was enough to reach the very top of the world. And it was a Magikarp. I knew exactly why Sunja failed. In my past life, I was a hardcore Pokemon gamer. A Magikarp with ancient bloodlines carried the lineage of a true dragon. Trying to nurture it with basic water energy was like trying to fuel a jet engine with cooking oil. It was a total waste. Fate was literally handing me the keys to the kingdom. I couldn't let this slip away. Lin Yuan, what are you standing there for? Zhao Kuan barked, frowning. You only have 30 minutes. Get in there. Coming, Teacher Zhao. I called back. I forced myself to stay calm and marched into the hatchery. I didn't even look at the popular grass or flying-type sections. I pushed through the crowd, heading straight for the deepest, darkest corner of the building, the water-type disposal area. The air here was cold and smelled of stagnant water and rust. Rows of old, corroded incubators lined the walls, their red lights flickering weakly. It was the loneliest place in the building. Outside, students were practically fighting over Pidgey and Caterpie eggs. Here, it was silent as a grave. Nobody wanted a Magikarp. In a world that obsessed over combat, Magikarp was a joke. Until they evolved, they could only flop around and use Splash. A newborn Rattata could kill an adult Magikarp. And the chance of evolution? 1 in a million. Magikarp lacked the emotional complexity to break their genetic locks. Without a massive emotional trigger, they stayed salted fish forever. Picking a Magikarp for the entrance exams in 3 months was basically an admission of failure. I stood in the center of the room and smiled. This was perfect. No distractions. Well, look what our top theory student is doing. A shrill, grating voice came from behind me. It was Li Chong. He was cradling a bright green Caterpie egg like it was a trophy. A few other students followed him, pointing and snickering. Lin Yuan, did you lose your mind? You're picking from the Magikarp trash heap. Li Chong mocked, holding his egg high for everyone to see. None of your business, I said without looking back. My eyes were scanning the incubators. Stop acting so high and mighty, Li Chong sneered. I get it, you're poor. But choosing a Magikarp is just pathetic. Did you study so hard you actually started believing that Dragon Gate fairy tale? The group burst into laughter. He's going to use Splash during the exam. He'll make the examiners die of laughter. I frowned and scanned the egg in Li Chong's arms. Fate, white. Potential, poor. Will never evolve into Metapod. I shook my head. He was bragging about a piece of junk that would be a worm forever. What an idiot. Lin Yuan, what are you doing? My best friend, Zhou Hao, came sprinting through the crowd, breathless. He was clutching a pale blue egg. He shoved Li Chong aside and grabbed my shoulder, his face pale with worry. Don't be stupid, man. You can't touch a Magikarp, Zhou Hao hissed. Look, I saw a Goldeen egg back there. It's not much, but at least it can use water gun. It's 1,000 times better than a salted fish. Go on ahead, Hao, I said, my voice steady. I know exactly what I'm doing. I patted Zhou Hao's hand and gently pushed it away. He was vibrating with anxiety, his face pale. You have no idea what you're doing, he hissed, his voice cracking. This is your entire life we're talking about. I'm sure about this, Hao, I said, my voice dropping an octave to show I wasn't joking. Go register your egg before someone tries to snatch it. Time is running out. Zhou Hao looked into my eyes. He saw the resolve there and realized I wasn't going to budge. He let out a long, defeated sigh. Fine. You've always been stubborn, he muttered, stepping back. I can't stop you. But if this goes south, don't worry. Your brother will look out for you. He walked away toward the registration desk, looking back at me every few steps. Finally, the area around the waist section went quiet. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes for a second to center myself, and then focused entirely on the incubators in front of me. System, full scan, I thought. A pale blue light flickered across my vision as data began to pour down like a waterfall. Name, unhatched Magikarp. Fate, gray, short-lived. Potential, congenital heart defect. Will die within a month of hatching. I frowned and moved on immediately. Name, unhatched Magikarp. Fate, white, salted fish. Extremely dull energy perception. Can never break through the novice rank. I shook my head. Next. Name, unhatched Magikarp. Fate, white, damaged. Shell cracked, leaking internal energy. Will be physically frail with zero combat power. I scanned a dozen more. They were all garbage. Some were destined to die young. Others were just salted fish that would never evolve. The sheer number of Magikarp made finding a diamond in the rough feel impossible. 10 minutes remaining. Zhao Kuan's harsh voice boomed over the intercom. If you haven't selected an egg, decide now and head to the front desk. Sweat beaded on my forehead. My heart hammered against my ribs. If I didn't find that champion tier egg in the next 10 minutes, my plan to change my destiny would be dead on arrival. I gritted my teeth and hurried my pace, scanning the rows of constant temperature cabinets. 30 eggs. 50. 80. My eyes started to ache and blur. I was almost ready to give up when a brilliant purple light exploded in my peripheral vision. It was coming from a dilapidated cabinet in the bottom left corner. I froze. I stared at the egg, which gave off a faint, rhythmic blue glow. Name, unhatched Magikarp. Fate, purple, overlord of water. Naturally powerful physique. Bone density far exceeds its peers. Hidden opportunity, king tier potential. After a near-death crisis, it has a 100% chance to trigger evolution into Gyarados. Future mainstay for a heavenly king. My breath hitched. King tier potential. That was something ordinary people wouldn't touch in 10 lifetimes. If I took this egg and nurtured it, I could sweep the college entrance exams in 3 months. I'd be a gym leader at the very least, living a life of wealth and status. I slowly reached out my right hand. My fingertips were inches from the shell. My hand was shaking. If I took this, my life was set. If I passed it up and failed to find the champion tier egg in the final minutes, I'd have nothing. It was the ultimate gamble. My logic told me to take the win and walk away. But then, the memory of Sunja's future script flashed in my mind. Champion tier. Ancestral mutation. Shiny. That was power that could reach the top of the world. Power that could rival the gods. No, I whispered to myself. I have the system. Why settle for being a king when I can be a god? I bit the tip of my tongue hard. The sharp pain cleared the fog in my brain. I forced my arm back, tore my gaze away from the purple glow, and turned toward the deepest, darkest corner of the room. 2 minutes left. Sunja, stop picking and get out here. Zhao Kuan's roar echoed through the warehouse. The sound of lazy footsteps approached. Sunja, the warehouse manager, strolled into the waste area holding a clipboard. He adjusted his black-rimmed glasses and yawned, looking at me like I was an idiot. What are you still doing in this pile of junk, kid? Time's up. Just a second, I said, my voice raspy. I ignored him, my eyes darting across the bottom shelf, which was buried under a thick layer of dust. Don't bother, Sunja prompted impatiently. The eggs in that corner have been there for 2 months. They're past their incubation window. They're dead eggs. They won't hatch. Past their incubation window. Those words hit me like a lightning bolt. That was the detail from the script. The egg Sunja was supposed to buy was the one everyone ignored because it was dead. I dropped to my knees and grabbed the edge of a rusted cabinet. I peered into the shadows. There, in the deepest part of the shelf, lay a single, unremarkable egg. It was dull, yellowish, and lacked any luster. The faint shimmer of life signs was almost extinguished. It looked like trash. But the moment my eyes landed on it, a blinding orange light erupted on my system panel. It was so bright it almost made my eyes bleed. Name, unhatched Magikarp, shiny. Fate, orange, ancestral dragon. Contains a trace of pure ancient true dragon blood. Breaks the racial limits of Magikarp. Hidden opportunity, champion tier potential. After evolution, All base stats increase by 60 points. Naturally gifted in dragon, water, and flying energy. Can easily master ultimate dragon-type moves. Asterisk asterisk. I was stunned. An extra 60 points to its base stats? A normal Gyarados has a base stat total of 540. With this, it would break 600. That was the territory of pseudo-legendaries, like Dragonite and Garchomp. Once it evolved, it wouldn't just be a Gyarados, it would be a god-tier Pokémon. This is the one, I roared internally. I lunged forward and grabbed the dusty egg, pulling it against my chest. I held it so tight my arms shook, terrified that someone would snatch it away at the last second. The shell felt cool against my skin. My eyes felt hot. In this world, the social classes were frozen. For an ordinary person, climbing the ladder was nearly impossible. But now, everything had changed. With this card in my hand, I wasn't just going to climb, I was going to fly. Every genius and rich kid was about to be left in my dust. I forced my heart to slow down. Using my sleeve, I carefully wiped the dust off the shell, treating it like the most fragile treasure on earth. I walked toward the registration desk. Sunja was leaning against the counter, yawning as he flipped through his logbook. He looked up as I approached. "All right, kid. Put the egg on the tray so I can scan it," he said lazily, reaching for his scanner. I didn't say a word. I placed the dull, yellowish egg onto the tray. Sunja's yawn died in his throat. His eyes nearly popped out of his head. He sat bolt upright, pushing his glasses up his nose as he stared at me in pure disbelief. "Are you serious?" he stammered. "You picked a Magikarp egg?" "Yes," I said firmly. "Please register it. Are you crazy or just blind?" Sunja pointed at the egg, his brow furrowing. "This shell is yellowed. The life signs are barely there. It's about to expire." "It's probably a dud," Sunja said, his voice dropping into a tone of forced concern. "Picking this is useless. I'm telling you this for your own good. Chinyu." He leaned over the counter, acting like he had my best interests at heart. "Magikarp are trash to begin with, and you went and picked one that's practically dead. This isn't for beginners. Take my advice, go back and swap it for something else." I caught a flicker in his eyes. For some reason, looking at this dusty, broken egg made Sunju uneasy. He looked like a man who had just realized he was about to lose something that belonged to him. His intuition was screaming at him, telling him not to let me walk out that door with it. It was a strange, irrational feeling, but it was eating him alive. "No need to swap," I said firmly. "I want this one." My voice left no room for negotiation. Seeing that I wasn't budging, Sunja's desperation flared. He reached out, his hand slamming down on top of the egg to keep it on the tray. "Student," he said, his face hardening as he tried to use his authority to crush me. "I am the manager of this facility. It is my responsibility to look out for your future. This egg is in terrible condition. I cannot let you take it. It would ruin your prospects. Go back and pick again immediately. I'm marking this egg for disposal." My gaze turned ice cold. I knew exactly what was happening. According to the system's script, Sunja was the one destined to accidentally find this treasure later. Now that I had stepped in and changed fate, his instincts were acting up. He was making up excuses to hijack my find. "Researcher son," I said, staring him straight in the eye. I didn't flinch. I didn't back down. The school rules are very clear. Within the allotted time, a student has absolute freedom of choice. Even if it's a dead egg, it's my choice. Sunja froze, his mouth hanging open to argue. "Or are you planning to openly violate school regulations?" I pressed on, my voice sharp and aggressive. I didn't give him a second to breathe. "Are you forcibly withholding a student's starter Pokémon? Because if you are, I don't mind calling teacher Zhao Kuan over right now. Or maybe I'll go straight to the principal. I think the school leadership would love to know why a manager is trying so hard to take an egg away from a student." The weight of that threat hit him like a physical blow. Cold sweat broke out on Sunja's forehead. He was just a low-level manager. If he got reported to the principal and lost his job over a supposedly expired Magikarp egg, he'd be finished. Fine, he snapped, waving his hand irritably. "Good advice is wasted on the damned." He grabbed the scanner and slammed it against the shell. Beep. The machine let out a cold, mechanical confirmation. Registration successful. He shoved the egg back toward me, his face twisted in a scowl as he muttered curses under his breath. "Take it," Just get out. When it fails to hatch, don't come crying to me. I didn't waste a second. I pulled the egg back into my arms. Thanks for your concern, Researcher Sunday. I walked out the door without looking back. Right as I stepped outside, the 30-minute selection period ended. My classmates from class 3 to 3 were already gathered in the clearing, clutching their eggs and chatting excitedly. Li Chong, what did you get? One asked. A Pidgey egg. Look at the patterns. They're beautiful. Pidgey? That's nothing. I got a cater pie. In a month, it'll be a Butterfree, and I'll breeze through the martial exams. Zhang Wei is the luckiest. He found a Machop egg with an inherited move. I'm so jealous. The air was thick with hope and ambition. Everyone was dreaming of their future glory. Then, they saw me. I walked toward the group holding my dull, yellowish egg, and the noise died down instantly. Every eye was on me. As the top theoretical student in the class, everyone trusted my judgment. They were all dying to see what kind of god-tier Pokémon the genius had picked. Was it a rare starter? A pseudo-legendary? Old Qin, you're finally out. Zhou Hao was the first to run over, his face beaming. He looked down at the egg in my arms, and his smile instantly turned to stone. This is... His eyes went wide. He pointed at the egg, his tongue tripping over his words. The other students crowded around, craning their necks to see. It was yellowed. It was dull. It was covered in a thick layer of dust. Anyone who had sat through a single lecture could recognize it. The silence stretched for 5 long seconds before the crowd erupted in a collective gasp. Am I seeing things? Is that a Magikarp egg? It's worse than that. It's a dud. The shell is practically turning black. Is Qin Yu insane? The top student picked that? Maybe the pressure finally got to him. The whispers turned into a roar of mockery. Then, a piercing laugh broke through the noise. Ha ha, I'm gonna die? This is too much. Wang Biao, the class delinquent, was clutching his stomach, laughing so hard tears were streaming down his face. Wang Biao always sat at the bottom of the rankings and hated how the teachers constantly compared him to me. Now, he looked like he'd just won the lottery. I thought the theory god was going to pull out a legendary, but he picked a salty fish. Wang Biao swaggered over, pointing a finger at the egg. Qin Yu, did you study so hard your brain rotted? Even a dog wouldn't want a piece of trash like a Magikarp, and you're holding it like a treasure. His cronies joined in immediately. Imagine taking a Magikarp to the exams. It'll get blasted out of the arena by a water gun before it even touches the opponent. He's probably just poor and gave up. He can't afford resources anyway, so he picked a loser Pokemon to match. Who cares if he's a top student? We're going to step all over him during the exams. The insults flew from every direction. Even the students who used to respect me were now looking at me with pity or contempt. I stood there, holding the egg firmly. I didn't even blink. Looking at Wang Biao jumping around like a clown, I felt nothing but a strange sense of amusement. These people were like frogs at the bottom of a well. They had no idea that the salty fish they were mocking carried the bloodline of an ancient true dragon. They couldn't see the champion-level potential of a shiny Gyarados. Arguing with idiots was a waste of breath. I'd rather keep my mouth shut and get rich. In 3 months, when this prehistoric beast hatched, they'd be the ones crying. I stayed silent, but Zhou Hao couldn't take it. Seeing his best friend humiliated made his face turn bright red, the veins on his neck bulging. Wang Biao, shut your damn mouth. Zhou Hao stepped forward, standing in front of me like a human shield. He glared at Wang Biao, his fists clenched tight. It's none of your business what old Qin picks. You can't even memorize type advantages, you bottom-tier loser. You have no right to talk. Wang Biao flinched at Zhou Hao's aggression, taking a half-step back. But realizing everyone was watching, he forced himself to stand his ground. What are you acting tough for, Zhou Hao? Am I wrong? A Magikarp is trash. Qin Yu picked trash, and I'm just saying it out loud. If he's so great, tell him to try and beat me with that fish during the exams. You're asking for it, Zhou Hao roared. He reached out to grab Wang Biao's collar, and Wang Biao's friends swarmed in, pushing and shoving. The tension was at a breaking point. It was about to turn into a full-blown riot. Everyone stop. A thunderous shout echoed from the back of the crowd. Our homeroom teacher, Zhao Kuan, marched through the group, his face dark with anger. The powerful aura of a master trainer radiated from him, silencing the crowd instantly. The pressure radiating from Zhao Kun was suffocating. He looked like he wanted to tear someone apart. "What do you think you're doing?" he roared, his voice echoing off the walls. "Starting a riot?" His sharp gaze swept across the room before locking onto Wang Biao. The fury in his eyes was unmistakable. "Wang Biao, you think you're a big man now? Mocking your own classmates? Sabotaging class unity? Is this the quality of a future trainer?" Wang Biao started to tremble. All that arrogance vanished in a heartbeat. "Teacher Zhao, I wasn't," he stammered, cold sweat pouring down his forehead. "Shut up," Zhao Kun snapped, cutting him off instantly. "Every choice made today was personal. If I hear one more person mocking someone else's Pokémon choice or breaking our unity, I will personally disqualify you from the college entrance exams." The room went deathly silent. Disqualification was a death sentence for their futures. Everyone lowered their heads and kept their mouths shut. Back in our Year 3, Class 3 classroom, the air was thick with tension. Students sat at their desks, clutching their Pokémon eggs. I could feel eyes darting toward me from all directions. My withered, yellow Magikarp egg looked pathetic compared to the colorful, vibrant eggs the others held. But after Zhao Kun's explosion, no one dared to say a word out loud. Zhao Kun marched to the front of the room. He grabbed a chalkboard eraser and slammed it against the podium. Asterisk bang. 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 Asterisk. The dull thuds killed the last of the whispers. We all sat up straight, eyes fixed on him. He leaned forward, gripping the edges of the desk. "Listen up. You all received your initial eggs today. From this moment on, you aren't just students. You are trainee trainers." You could hear a pin drop. To prepare for this year's exams and boost our school's passing rate, the board has made a major decision, Zhao Kun said, his tone turning grave. Starting next week, the curriculum is changing completely. Theory and culture classes are being cut in half. The extra time will be dedicated entirely to combat training and breeding guidance. A wave of suppressed gasps filled the room. Zhou slapped his thigh so hard, he almost dropped his egg. "Yes, finally, no more memorizing boring berry encyclopedias," he whispered to me, winking. I didn't respond. I just kept a firm grip on my egg and watched Zhao Kun. I knew a sudden shift like this meant something even bigger was coming. Zhao Kun pressed his hands down to signal for silence. Beyond the curriculum, the board is putting their money where their mouth is. His eyes flashed with a hint of excitement. The school has allocated 5 million credits in specialized breeding resources as an incentive fund for this graduating class. For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. The entire class froze. 10 seconds later, the room exploded into a deafening roar. 5 million? Is the school crazy? Do you know how many high-grade energy cubes that can buy? You could get rare skill discs on the black market for that kind of money. Faces turned red with excitement. To us, 5 million wasn't just a number, it was a fortune. Li Chang gripped his Caterpie egg so hard his hands shook. "If I get those resources, my Caterpie could evolve into a Butterfree in a month," he muttered, his eyes filled with greed. Zhao Kun let them vent for a moment before knocking on the board again. "This money isn't a gift," he said with a thin smile. 3 months from now, right before the exams, the school will host a newcomer trainer tournament. Every ear in the room perked up. It's a full elimination tournament for the entire senior year. The champion will walk away with the lion's share, 3 million credits worth of resources. Another collective gasp. 3 million credits focused on a single person could turn a regular student into a top-tier powerhouse overnight. And that's not all. Zhao Kun paused, letting the suspense build. The champion will also earn a one-time entry into the school's underground vault to choose one rare treasure. The classroom turned into a madhouse. Students were cheering and shouting. Yuchi High was an old, prestigious school. The items in that vault weren't things you could find on the open market. We were talking high-level evolution stones, top-grade held items, or even lost secret technique TMs. "That championship is mine," someone yelled. The room dissolved into chaos as people started arguing and bragging. I sat in the back, my fingers tracing the rough shell of my egg. My heart was racing. 3 million in resources and a vault treasure? That was exactly what I needed. This shiny Magikarp had god-tier potential, but it needed a massive amount of energy to evolve quickly. My meager savings wouldn't even cover a snack for it. If I won, my resource problem would vanish instantly. I forced myself to calm down. The reward was huge, but the challenge was even bigger. There were over 1,000 seniors at Yuchi High. The students in the regular classes weren't the problem. It was the elites in the honors class. Names flashed through my mind. Chu Tianjiao from Class 1. His father was the richest man in Yunhai City, and he was holding a pseudo-legendary Bagon egg. If he used his family's resources to hatch and train that Bagon in 3 months, he would be a nightmare to face. But Chu Tianjiao wasn't the one I worried about most. Did you hear? Luo Qingyuan from Class 1 got her Pokemon too. A boy in the front row whispered to his friend. Well done. The Luo family wouldn't let their daughter go without, his friend replied. It's not just any Snivy. My cousin works for the Luos. He said that Snivy is a direct descendant of a champion-level superior. It's got the purest grass-type bloodline you can imagine. I frowned. Luo Qingyuan was a legend at school. She was stunningly beautiful and incredibly wealthy. A descendant of a champion-level Pokemon meant her Snivy had natural talent and skill comprehension far beyond its peers. More importantly, there was the type disadvantage. Grass beats water. Before my Magikarp evolved, it stood no chance against a high bloodline Snivy. Even if I used Tackle or Flail, I'd be a punching bag for its Vine Whip. Unless, I looked down at my egg. Unless I could make it leap the Dragon Gate within 3 months. If it evolved into Gyarados, it would gain the Flying type. Flying beats Grass. Only then would I have the capital to stand against people like Luo Qingyuan and Chu Tianjiao. All right, that's enough, Zhao Kuan said, clapping his hands to end the discussion. Go home. Set up your incubation environments. Class dismissed. Everyone started packing frantically. Qinyu, Zhao Kuan called out suddenly. I looked up, meeting his complicated gaze. Come to my office, he said shortly, then turned and walked out. I felt the stinging glares of my classmates. Wang Biao let out a nasty little chuckle. Picking a trash Magikarp. Now he's really in for it. He's definitely going to get it now, my friend Zhou Hao whispered, patting my shoulder with a worried look. Old Qin, you're on your own. Good luck. I'll be fine, I replied calmly. I carefully tucked the Magikarp egg into my temperature-controlled backpack, strapped it to my chest, and walked out of the classroom. Inside the office, Zhao Kuan sat at his desk. He was frowning, clutching a thermos of hot water. When he heard my footsteps, he looked up and gestured toward the seat across from him. Sit, he said shortly. I pulled out the chair and sat down, keeping my back straight. Zhao Kuan took a slow sip of water before setting the thermos down with a heavy thud. Your theory grades are always so good, he began, his voice thick with frustration. How could you be so foolish when it actually matters? He leaned forward, staring into my eyes. Do you know what Magikarp is called in the trainer community? The strongest loser. I didn't interrupt. I knew he was coming from a place of genuine concern. He was a responsible teacher, worried about my future. I know your family isn't wealthy, Zhao Kuan continued, his fingers drumming a frantic rhythm on the desk. But even so, you could have picked a Caterpie, a Pidgey, or even a Rattata. But you chose a Magikarp. And not just any Magikarp, a defective, low-quality egg that's about to expire. Teacher, I said, my voice steady. I've done a lot of research. Once a Magikarp evolves into Gyarados, its power changes completely. Don't you think I know what the textbooks say? Zhao Kuan stood up and started pacing behind his desk. The evolution rate is pathologically low. Without extreme environmental stimulation and massive resources, it stays a useless fish forever. You only have 3 months until the college entrance exam. How do you plan to make it evolve? With your life? I met his gaze without flinching. I have a plan. I believe it can evolve. My answer was blunt and final. Zhao Kuan let out a dry, angry laugh at my stubbornness. He sat back down and pulled a document from his drawer, sliding it toward me. Fine. You're a stubborn kid, he said, lowering his voice. I checked the Bureau of Education regulations. There's a loophole. If a student can prove an egg has a severe congenital defect before it hatches, they can apply for a one-time exchange. I blinked. I hadn't known about that rule. That egg of yours is about to expire, and its life signs are weak, Zhao Kuan said, his eyes full of hope. It fits the criteria perfectly. If you just say the word, I'll go to the breeding house myself. I'll beg the principal to sign off on it. I'll get you a normal egg. Even a Bellsprout is 100 times better than a Magikarp. Please, don't gamble with your future. Looking at that document, I felt a surge of genuine emotion. In this cold, competitive world, finding a teacher who cared this much was rare. He was willing to risk his reputation and exploit loopholes just to help me. It was a heavy debt of gratitude, but I couldn't accept. What I had wasn't a defective fish. It was a shiny Magikarp with the bloodline of an ancient true dragon. It was my only chip to change my destiny. I wouldn't trade it for a pseudo-legendary, let alone a Bellsprout. I stood up and gave Zhao Kun a deep, respectful bow. Teacher Zhao, thank you, I said, my voice firm. But I don't need an exchange. I've made my choice. Whatever the outcome, I will take full responsibility. I promise you, this Magikarp won't let you down. Zhao Kun looked at the ironclad resolve in my eyes and sighed. He knew it was useless to argue further. He slumped back into his chair and waved me off with a tired word of encouragement. I walked out of the office. The hallway was empty, the school quiet. I tightened the straps on my backpack. Inside was my future. I grabbed my old bicycle from the racks and started pedaling toward home under an orange-red sunset. The streets of Yunhai City were vibrant in this parallel world. Pidgeys took flight from the bushes. A skitty napped outside a convenience store. At the traffic light, a police officer stood with a grow live, keeping order. I watched it all with fresh eyes and activated my fate script system. Translucent blue screens popped up over people and Pokemon. Name, Old Manly. Fate, White Mediocre. Recent turning point, none. Name, Growlife. Fate, Green. Recent turning point. We'll catch a thief tonight and receive 2 high-grade energy cubes as a reward. I kept pedaling, scanning the crowds for any hidden opportunities. I saw dozens of scripts, mostly white or gray. A few greens, but nothing life-changing. No purple or orange god-tier opportunities. I didn't even see a blue one. Then, at a red light, a luxury car pulled up. In the back sat a middle-aged man in a suit. Next to him was a massive, menacing Houndoom. I triggered the scan. Name, Zhao Tianhua. Vice leader of the Yunhai City Gym. Fate, Blue, local powerhouse. Recent turning point. We'll find a thunderstone vein in the forest next month. Name, Houndoom. Fate, Blue. Recent turning point. We'll consume a mutated fire lotus in the forest and break through to pseudo-elite level. I held my breath. A thunderstone vein. A pseudo-elite level Pokemon. These were the true elites of the city. I looked away, feeling no jealousy, only a burning ambition. If I could hatch the champion-level shiny Magikarp in my bag, my future would dwarf even a gym leader. I sped up, arriving at my neighborhood 30 minutes later. It was an old residential complex with peeling paint and flickering lights. Some elderly neighbors were sitting outside, gossiping. I heard old Jang's grandson got a Mankey at school today, one said. Mankeys have such bad tempers. How will they afford to train it on a pension? I greeted them and headed up to the 3rd floor. My parents, Qin Haifeng and Su Wanqing, were ordinary teachers. They worked hard just to keep us afloat and pay for my schooling. As soon as I opened the door, the smell of home-cooked food hit me. Use back. Wash up. Dinner's ready, my mom called out, wearing an apron and carrying a plate of braised pork. Her eyes immediately landed on my chest. The school gave out the eggs today. My father put down his newspaper and stood up, his eyes fixed on the backpack. This was the moment that would define my life in their eyes. My parents' eyes immediately dropped to my backpack. Yeah, they gave them out, I said, kicking off my shoes. I placed the backpack carefully on the coffee table. I didn't mention that the egg inside belonged to a Magikarp. In my parents' world, that was the ultimate trash Pokemon. If I told them now, they'd lose their minds with worry. We sat down at the small dining table. It was a simple meal, 3 dishes and a soup. My mom, Su Wanqing, placed a piece of meat into my bowl. Her voice was cautious, testing the waters. Now that you have your egg, what are your plans for the college entrance exam? I took a bite of rice and kept my voice steady. I want to take the combat trainer route. I'm going to aim for a top-tier Pokemon university. The clatter of chopsticks hitting the table echoed through the room. My mother's face went pale, dead pale. She stood up so fast her chair screeched against the floor. No, absolutely not. Her hands pressed hard against the table, trembling. Do you even know what being a combat trainer means? She stared at me, her eyes wide with fear. It means going into secret realms. It means risking your life against vicious wild Pokemon. The news is full of it every day. Thousands of trainers go missing in those places every year. They don't come back, They die. Their bodies are never even found. I put down my utensils. I understood her fear. I really did. Mom, I know it's dangerous, I said softly. But I don't want to live a mediocre life. I want to see what's at the top of the mountain. What mountain? You can't see anything if you're dead. She rushed around the table and grabbed my arm. Did you forget about the neighbor, Lou? He went into a low-level secret realm 2 years ago to try his luck and never came home. Listen to me. Don't take the combat exam. Your theory grades are the best in school. Become a breeder. You can stay in the back, do research, make energy cubes. It's safe. It's stable. The pay is great. Her voice turned into a plea. Your father and I only have one son. We don't need you to be rich. We just want you safe. I reached out and took her hand, meeting her frantic gaze. I knew what kind of world this was. It was a world where strength was everything. Without power, you couldn't protect anything, not even your money. Being a breeder requires massive funding, Mom. We can't afford the lab materials. But more importantly, my voice was calm but filled with a sudden, sharp confidence. I don't want to leave my fate in someone else's hands. I want to use my own power to protect you both. I want to change our lives. My mother froze. She looked at me and realized the boy she knew was gone. In his place was a young man with a gaze like flint. I've already decided, I said, sitting up straight. I'm going to be a top-tier trainer. I'm holding my destiny in my own hands. Her lips trembled. She saw the stubbornness in my eyes, the kind of resolve that no amount of arguing could break. Finally, the tears fell. She slumped back into her chair, defeated. Why do you have to be so stubborn? She whispered, wiping her eyes. I can't stop you, but you have to promise me. Even if you become a trainer, you won't go into high-risk zones. My throat felt tight. I nodded firmly. I promise. I'll protect myself. Beside us, my father, Qin Haifeng, had remained silent. He picked up a small glass of white liquor and took a slow sip. He looked at me with a complex expression. I knew what he was thinking. 20 years ago, he was just like me, full of dreams, vowing to conquer the secret realms. But reality had slapped him down hard. He was poor. He couldn't afford high-quality energy cubes or skill TMs. His starter, an Oddish, had been stunted. It couldn't even use a basic poison powder move correctly. During his own entrance exam, he had faced a rich kid with a Charmander raised on premium fire-type resources. It wasn't even a fight. One ember from that Charmander sent his Oddish to the hospital with severe burns. He didn't even have time to forfeit. He could still hear the laughter of the crowd and the sigh of the examiner. After his dreams shattered, he bowed to life. He went to a normal teaching college and returned to Yunhai City to earn a meager salary. His Oddish was now just a pet in a planter box, spending its days soaking up the sun. Life had ground the fire out of him. He looked at the cheap incubator bag on the coffee table. He knew how hard the path was for a commoner. It was a bottomless pit that swallowed money. Without resources, even the best talent would wither. He wanted to tell me the cruel truth. He wanted to tell me that without a background, this path was impossible. But then he looked at my eyes. They were bright. They were full of a fire he hadn't seen in decades. He couldn't bring himself to extinguish that light. It was something he once had and lost forever. He swallowed a bitter peanut, the harsh liquor burning his throat. He sighed and set the glass down. You, he said, his voice raspy. Since you've made up your mind, what's your plan? My mother stopped eating, looking at me tensely. Dad, Mom, don't worry, I said seriously. I'm not going to throw my life away. If I do well on the exam, I can get into a top national university. They have the best facilities and professional mentors. It's safe. I'll use their resources to build my strength steadily. I won't touch a high-risk realm until I'm ready. My father's brow finally unknurled. He nodded. I wasn't just being hot-headed. I had a plan. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a faded, old wallet. He unzipped it and took out a bank card with worn edges. He slid it across the table toward me. There's 200,000 credits in here, he said. It's half of what your mother and I have saved over the years. I froze. To a rich kid like Chu Tianjiao, 200,000 credits was pocket change for a few high-grade energy cubes. But for my family, this was blood and sweat. This was every penny they had pinched and saved. "Dad, what are you doing?" My throat felt tight. He sighed. "The combat path is too hard without resources. The eggs the school gives out for free, their potential is usually average at best. If you take an average Pokemon into the exam, you'll be at a massive disadvantage." He patted my shoulder. "Take this money. Tomorrow, go to a licensed Pokemon center in the city. Pick out a high-quality egg. A Maghop or a Geodude with good potential. Anything is better than what the school gave you." My mom nodded quickly. "He's right, you. This money was for your college, but it's better to use it now to build a foundation. A better starter gives you a real chance." I looked at the card, then at their hopeful faces. My eyes burned. I took a deep breath and pushed the card back toward my father. "Dad, Mom, thank you. But I can't use this to buy a new Pokemon." My father stared at me, confused. "Why? You can't win with a common Pokemon, you. It's impossible." I shook my head, a small smile playing on my lips. I knew something they didn't. I didn't need a new egg. I already had a god. I had already picked the best Pokemon in the world. I stood up and walked over to the coffee table. I unzipped my constant temperature backpack with steady hands and gently lifted out the withered, dark yellow egg. I carried it back to the dining table and placed it softly on the surface. "This is the starter I chose at school today," I said. My father, Qin Haifeng, and my mother, Su Wanqing, leaned in at the same time to look. When they saw the egg, they both froze. This is a Magikarp egg," my father stuttered, his eyes widening in disbelief. He had been a teacher for years. He recognized that iconic shell instantly. My mother's face turned pale. "Xiaoyu, have you lost your mind? Why would you pick a trash Pokemon?" She slapped her thigh in frustration. "Magikarp can't even fight. Taking this to the combat exam is just asking for failure." My father stood up abruptly, his chest heaving with anger. "Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. You're the top theoretical student in the whole school. How could you make such a low-level mistake?" He pointed a trembling finger at the egg. "Look at the shell. It's turning black. It's obviously a dead egg that's past its expiration date. Take it back and return it right now." Faced with their fury, I remained calm. I reached out and gently stroked the rough surface of the shell. "Dad, Mom," I said, looking them straight in the eyes. "I'm not crazy. I know Magikarp is called the strongest trash, but I chose this one because I'm absolutely certain about it." My father let out a sharp, angry laugh. "Certain? Based on what? The theories in your textbooks? The evolution rate of a Magikarp is less than 1 in a million. What makes you think this one is any different?" I took a deep breath. It was time for the lie I had prepared. Because I've awakened a psychic power. The dining room went dead silent. My parents stared at each other, then back at me, their faces masked in pure shock. In this world, a tiny fraction of humans could awaken special abilities, things like viridian power, aura, or psychic shells. Anyone who awakened such a power was destined to be a legend, provided they didn't fall early. You awakened a power?" my father stammered, his breathing turning shallow. My mother covered her mouth, her eyes fixed on me. I nodded firmly. "Yes," I lied, my heart steady and my voice calm. "It happened this afternoon in class. I had a sudden headache, and when it passed, my vision had changed. I can see things other people can't." My father swallowed hard. "See what?" "I can see the potential and aptitude of a Pokemon," I told them, gesturing to the egg. To my eyes, this Magikarp egg is emitting a light so dazzling it's 100 times brighter than any other egg in the school. My father's breath hitched, and he collapsed back into his chair. "An ability to see aptitude," he whispered, his mind going blank. If this was true, it was a god-tier talent. In an era where picking a Pokemon was like buying a mystery box, being able to see the contents meant unlimited wealth and resources. "Xiaoyu, are you sure you didn't see it wrong?" my mother asked, her voice trembling. "It's really not a normal Magikarp?" I nodded heavily. "It's not. This Magikarp has terrifying potential hidden inside. That's why I refused Teacher Zhao's offer to swap it. I had to bring it home." It took them 3 full minutes to process the news. When my father looked at the withered egg again, His expression had completely flipped. The disgust and anger were gone, replaced by awe and intense anticipation. If that's the case, he rubbed his face, forcing himself to stay focused. Even if we have to sell everything we own, we'll support you. He pushed the bank card toward me again, his voice firm. Xiaoyu, take this 200,000 credits. Since this Magikarp has such high potential, it needs massive resources. Buy the best nutrients, the highest grade energy cubes. Don't let it lack for anything. My mother nodded frantically. Yes, and if that's not enough, I'll go borrow more. We have to ensure it develops perfectly. Looking at their unconditional support, my chest swelled with emotion. I didn't refuse this time. I took the card and gripped it tight. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Mom. I promise, I'll give you a massive surprise during the exams in 3 months. Dinner ended in an atmosphere of excitement. My father even broke his own rules and had 2 extra drinks, his face flushed with joy. Afterward, as my mother cleared the dishes, I picked up the egg to head to my room. At the door, I stopped and turned back, my expression dead serious. Don't tell anyone about my power. If people find out I can see a Pokemon's aptitude, it will bring nothing but trouble. My father sobered up instantly. You're right. Absolutely right. He looked at my mother sternly. This secret stays in this house. Not a word to anyone, not even your side of the family. My mother nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. Don't worry. My lips are sealed. Relieved, I went into my room. It was small but clean. I placed the egg on my desk and immediately pulled out my phone to access the country's largest Pokemon trading site. The egg's life signs were weak, and I needed to act fast. I scrolled through the listings, ignoring the cheap stuff. I found what I needed, a Silver Corp high-grade automated incubator with microcomputer control. It cost 8,000 credits. I didn't even blink. With the 200,000 credits from my parents, I had the confidence to spend. I clicked buy and entered my address. The logistics were incredibly fast. Half an hour later, there was a soft tap on my window. I pulled back the curtain to see a large, majestic Pidgeot perched on the ledge, a bulky package clutched in its talons. It gave a sharp cry as I opened the window, signed for the delivery, and watched it vanish into the night sky. I unpacked the silver, high-tech incubator and hooked it up. I set the temperature and humidity specifically for water-type eggs. A soft blue light filled the chamber as the nutrient solution began to circulate. Very gently, I placed the Magikarp egg into the groove and slid the bulletproof glass cover shut. The next day after school, I didn't go home. I headed straight to the city's largest Pokemon mall. The place was packed. A young salesgirl saw my school uniform and assumed I was looking for basic berries. Need some help, student? We have a sale on basic nutrients, she said cheerfully. I need a high-strength, explosion-proof fish tank, I told her, and a top-spec Pokemon nursery bottle. I paused, looking at the top shelf of the display case. Also a crate of Moo Moo milk. Make sure it's a fresh batch, airlifted today. The girl froze, her eyes wide. A crate? Moo Moo milk is 5,000 credits a box. Are you sure? Moo Moo milk was rich in gentle energy, perfect for giving a newborn Pokemon a god-tier foundation. But it was expensive. I didn't care. My Magikarp deserved nothing less. Standard families couldn't dream of spending this much on a single pet, but I didn't hesitate. I pulled out the bank card my father, Qin Haifeng, had given me and handed it over. The salesgirl held her breath, her entire demeanor shifting instantly from casual to deeply respectful. As she went to process the payment, other customers started whispering. They couldn't believe a high schooler was dropping 5,000 credits on a single crate of milk. They probably assumed my family had prepared a top-tier starter for me. Why else would anyone waste such expensive resources? I didn't care about the gossip. I grabbed my bags and took a taxi straight home. Over the next few days, my life became a strict routine, school, then home. Every day after class, I didn't even stop to take off my backpack before rushing into my bedroom. I had to check the incubator. Under the nourishment of the high-grade solution, the Magikarp egg was changing. That dull, withered yellow color was fading away. A soft, warm luster began to flow across the shell, and the life signs on the monitor rose steadily every single day. By the evening of the 10th day, everything changed. I was standing in front of the incubator as usual when a faint but dazzling white light flashed across the egg's surface. My heart skipped a beat. The textbooks were right. White light meant it was time to hatch. I didn't wait. The next morning, I called my teacher, Zhao Kuan, and told him I was sick and needed a week off. I heard him sigh on the other end of the line. He probably thought I was skipping school because I couldn't handle the mockery of picking a Magikarp. He thought I was giving up. I didn't bother explaining. All my energy was focused on this champion tier egg. Sunlight filtered through the curtains, splashing across my desk as I sat there reviewing my breeding notes. Suddenly, the quiet hum of the incubator was broken by a sharp, rapid beeping. The soft blue light turned a piercing, angry red. I bolted upright, knocking my chair over without even noticing. I lunged toward the incubator, pressing my hands against the glass, eyes locked on the egg. Inside the solution, the egg was shaking violently. It looked like something terrifying was trapped inside, slamming against its cage. Crack! The sound was sharp in the quiet room. A tiny fissure appeared at the top of the shell. Then, like a spider web, cracks raced across the surface until they covered the whole thing. Boom! A blinding explosion of white light erupted from the cracks, filling every corner of the room. I squinted, shielded my eyes, and heard a soft pop. When the light finally faded, a small creature was floating silently in the nutrient solution. I stopped breathing. A normal Magikarp is bright red. But the creature in front of me was covered in a layer of breathtaking, pure gold scales. Under the room lights, those scales shimmered with a noble, mysterious aura. Even more shocking was its dorsal fin. Normal Magikarps have floppy, weak fins, but this one's fin stood tall and sharp, like a majestic crown. Its eyes weren't dull or vacant. They held a cold, defiant light. Even though it was just born, it carried the faint, oppressive air of an ancient predator. A shiny Magikarp. I clenched my fists, my chest tight with excitement. This was a one-in-a-million masterpiece. I forced myself to stay calm, pressed the drain button to empty the solution, and carefully opened the glass cover. I picked up a soft, sterile towel and gently scooped the golden Magikarp into my hands. The little guy didn't struggle. It just watched me with those cold, proud eyes. I worked gently, wiping away the remaining fluid and shell fragments. From now on, we're partners, I whispered, a smile tugging at my lips. The Magikarp seemed to understand. It gave its golden tail a light flick in response. Once it was clean, I placed it into the high-strength, explosion-proof tank. I grabbed a bottle, filled it with warm moo milk, and held it near the water's surface. The moment it smelled that rich aroma, the Magikarp's cool act vanished. It darted over, clamped onto the nipple, and started gulping it down. Gulp, gulp. The entire bottle of expensive milk was gone in less than 30 seconds. After it finished, it let out a satisfied little burp and swam to the edge of the glass, rubbing against the spot where my finger rested. The bond was forming. I took a deep breath and pulled out the standard red and white Pokeball the school had issued. Come on, be my Pokémon. I tapped the ball gently against its golden head. There was no resistance. The Magikarp turned into a streak of red light and was sucked inside. The ball landed on the desk. The red light in the center blinked once. Twice. 3 times. Ding! The lock clicked. The capture was successful. Suddenly, a series of mechanical prompts exploded in my mind. Asterisk ding. Detected successful capture of a champion tier, shiny Magikarp. Host destiny has deviated significantly. Recalculating life script. Asterisk. My vision blurred as a massive, pale blue screen expanded before my eyes. The dull white color that used to represent my fate shattered, replaced by a deep, brilliant blue light, as vast as the ocean. Asterisk name, Chinyu. Fate, blue, genius trainer. Asterisk. Asterisk status, you have broken the chains of mediocrity. You possess potential far beyond ordinary people and are destined to shine. Asterisk. Asterisk new talent, training efficiency plus 300%. Your intuition for breeding and training is terrifying. Your Pokemon gain experience and learn skills 4 times faster than normal. Asterisk. I stared at the screen, my heart thumping against my ribs. I knew exactly what a blue tier fate meant. My best friend, Zhou Hao, had a blue fate, and he was destined to be the youngest Fire-type Elite Four member in the country. Now, I was finally in that same league of geniuses. The 300% efficiency boost was what really floored me. One day of my training was equal to 4 days for anyone else. A skill that took others 3 months to master would take me less than 1. For a Magikarp, a species notorious for slow growth and difficult evolution, this was a god-tier gift. With this talent and the high-end resources I was buying, evolving this fish into a Gyarados within 3 months wasn't just a dream. It was a certainty. I suppressed my excitement and kept reading the script. My future had changed completely. Current fortune, rising like the sun. Recent turning point. In 3 months, you will shock everyone by winning the Uchi High Newcomer Tournament. You will then dominate the college entrance exams and enter the top Pokemon University in the province. Final ending. After graduation, while exploring a secret realm, you will stumble upon a secret operation by the international criminal organization Shadow. Due to a lack of peak-level strength, you will be hunted by 3 elite-level Shadow executives and eventually die in battle at Soul-Breaking Valley. I sat at my desk and stared at that death in battle ending. I didn't feel fear. Instead, I felt a cold smirk touch my face. I wasn't afraid because I had the tools to change it. I was a blue-tier genius now, and with a 300% training boost, the future was mine to rewrite. This system was my greatest asset. As for that tragic fate waiting for me at the end of the road, with the script system, it didn't matter. If I could see the future, I could change it. I closed the fate panel, my expression darkening with focus. If I could scout my enemies' moves and snatch their opportunities before they even knew they existed, I could break any deadlock. Right now, my mind was fixed on the hidden opportunity in Zhao Tianhua's script. That leaf stone had to be mine. I clenched my fists, making a silent vow. For the next week, I didn't leave the house. I poured everything into raising Magikarp. I treated bottles of Moo Moo milk like they were plain water, feeding one to him every single day. Most wealthy kids would calculate the cost of such high-end supplements down to the last credit, but I didn't care. With a mountain of resources and my blue-tier destiny, Magikarp's growth was terrifying. In just 7 days, he bypassed the infancy stage and officially entered the ranks of novice-level Pokemon. One morning, I was jolted awake by a series of violent thuds. Asterisk bang, bang, bang. Asterisk the sound was coming from the high-strength riot-proof aquarium on my desk. I rolled out of bed and rushed over, stopping dead in my tracks. The golden Magikarp, which had been the size of my palm just a week ago, had tripled in size. He was now nearly half a meter long. His golden scales looked like they had been cast from molten gold, hard, shimmering with a metallic luster. His dorsal fin was incredibly sharp, standing tall like a golden blade. The once spacious tank had become a cramped cage. He could barely turn around. I noticed faint white cracks on the 3-centimeter thick reinforced glass where he'd been hitting it. Man, this physique is ridiculous, I muttered. I quickly popped the lid and reached into the water. Seeing me, Magikarp swam over happily, rubbing his hard head against my palm. I braced myself and used both hands to lift the heavy, golden mass out of the water. He weighed at least 30 pounds. I carried him into the bathroom, set him in the large tub, and cranked the faucet. Finally free to move, Magikarp splashed around joyfully. A single flick of his golden tail sent a spray of water half a meter into the air. The commotion brought my father, Qin Haifeng, running from the living room where he'd been reading the paper. "What are you doing in there so early?" he asked, pushing the door open. He froze. His eyes went wide, and the newspaper slipped from his fingers, fluttering to the floor. What kind of Pokemon is that?" "Dad, this is my Magikarp," I said, wiping my hands on a towel. "A Magikarp?" His voice jumped an octave. He looked at the creature in the tub like he was seeing a monster. "Don't lie to me. I've been a teacher for 20 years. There's no Magikarp like that. Look at the size, the scales. That looks like a high-level beast." He hurried to the edge of the tub, leaning over until his eyes were practically bulging out of his head. A normal Magikarp only reached 70 or 80 centimeters when fully grown, and they were usually floppy and weak. This thing was only a week old, already half a meter long, and rippling with visible muscle. It made his skin crawl just looking at it. "Dad, I told you before, He has incredible potential. I patted Magikarp's head. Show him your power. Hit that old plastic bucket. I pointed to a thick, discarded bucket in the corner. Magikarp stopped splashing. His gaze turned sharp. He opened his mouth, and the water elements in the air began to swirl violently toward him. A high-pressure jet of water, as thick as a man's thigh, erupted from his mouth. It tore through the air with a whistle and slammed into the bucket. Boom. The heavy plastic shattered instantly. Shards flew across the bathroom, and the sheer force of the impact left a clear white gouge in the wall tiles. Silence fell over the room. My father stayed leaned over, his mouth hanging open, looking like he'd been struck by lightning. After 30 seconds, he swallowed hard and turned his head stiffly toward me. Hydro pump. His voice was trembling. His legs went weak, and he almost lost his balance. A 1-week-old Magikarp using a high-level water-type move like Hydro Pump? My father looked like he realized everything he'd learned in his decades of teaching was a lie. Magikarp were supposed to only know Splash, maybe Tackle or Flail if they were lucky. A Magikarp that could use Water Gun was already a miracle, but Hydro Pump? That was a move for elite water types. Take it easy, Dad. I grabbed his arm and smiled. This is a top-tier specimen. He doesn't just know Hydro Pump. It's stronger than the ones used by normal Pokémon. My dad was breathing hard, gripping my wrist tight. Xiaoyu, what kind of monster did you bring home? He was so excited he was barely making sense. This isn't a trash Pokémon. This is the reincarnation of a water god. I helped my overwhelmed father back to the sofa to calm down, then returned to my room and locked the door. Honestly, I was shocked too. The script hadn't mentioned he would learn such an insane move this early. I called out to the system in my mind. System, open Magikarp's fate script. The light blue screen flickered to life. I realized that since I had officially caught Magikarp and formed a bond, the display had changed. What used to be a simple summary of destiny was now a detailed data panel. Pokémon, Magikarp, Shiny/Ancestral, Level, Novice EXP, 15/1000 Type, Water Abilities, Swift Swim, Intimidate Moves, Splash, Mastered, Tackle, Beginner, Hydro Pump, Beginner, Accidentally Learned due to Ancestral Bloodline Awakening, Status, Extremely Healthy, Energy Abundant. My eyes lit up. Level, Experience Points, Move Proficiency. It had turned reality into a game interface. My heart raced. This direct feedback was a massive advantage. Normal trainers never knew exactly when their Pokémon would level up or how effective a training session really was. They just had to guess. I didn't have to guess. I could see the progress bar. If there was an experience bar, it meant that besides feeding, training would grant EXP. I rubbed my chin, thinking fast. If training worked, would battling grant even more? Magikarp already had Hydro Pump, but before I took him into a secret realm for real combat, I needed to figure out how to maximize his growth. Over the next few days, I became a mad scientist. I took Magikarp to an abandoned indoor swimming pool in the old city district and rented out the whole place. Using the real-time data from my system, I tested hundreds of training methods. Magikarp, use Splash 10 times in a row. I shouted from the poolside, notebook in hand. Magikarp began flopping wildly on the water's surface. I watched the panel. Asterisk EXP +4. EXP +4, asterisk. Pure physical exertion gave too little. I shook my head and crossed it off. Now, use Hydro Pump on that target. Magikarp fired the massive jet, obliterating the target. EXP +20. Move usage gave high experience, but the stamina drain was too great to sustain. I kept recording. I tried weighted swimming, sprinting against the current, lure training with energy cubes, and extreme pressure tests. Every time he finished a set, I checked the numbers. I discovered that with my 300% training efficiency talent, Magikarp's experience gain was like a rocket ship. Where a normal Pokémon would gain 1 point from a weighted sprint, Magikarp gained 4. After 3 days and nights of this, I finally figured out the patterns. I sat back in a lounge chair by the pool, looking at the dense rows of data filling my notebook. I smiled. A week later, I was at the Shanghai Integrated Elf Training Center in Yunhai City. I had rented out a high-level water-type training room. Inside the massive temperature-controlled pool, the water jets were set to the highest setting. The current roared in a violent, reverse surge. A brilliant golden figure streaked through the turbulent water. It was my shiny Magikarp. He had already grown past a meter in length. His golden scales shimmered with a cold, metallic luster under the underwater floodlights. I had strapped 50 kilograms of high-density lead weights to his back. That kind of weight would make a normal adult water type sink like a stone and drown. But my Magikarp fought against the crushing reverse current and the terrifying load. He charged again and again. I stood on the high platform above the pool, holding an electronic tablet. My eyes were locked on the system screen that only I could see. The notifications were rolling in. Magikarp was performing extreme pressure reverse current training. Experience plus 15. Experience plus 18. Magikarp broke through his physical limits. Experience plus 25. The data on the screen jumped frantically. I let out a satisfied grin. I had lived in this training room for the past week. Using the real-time feedback from my cheat, I had tossed out all the outdated, generic training methods from the textbooks. I knew exactly how much stamina Magikarp consumed every second. The moment his experience gain slowed down, I switched the drill. This level of precision, combined with my 300% efficiency talent, made his growth speed terrifying. What kind of monster are you raising? The training center owner, Fatty Wong, wiped sweat from his forehead as he walked over. He stared at the tireless golden beast in the water. Fatty Wong had run this place for over a decade. He had seen countless geniuses and rare Pokémon, but he swore he had never seen a Magikarp grow from the size of a palm to over a meter in just half a month. It defied the laws of biology. I crossed off another data point on my board and looked at him. Boss Wong, turn the water speed up 2 more notches. And turn on the underwater high-voltage electric grid obstacles. My voice was calm. Fatty Wong gasped. His heavy body actually shuddered. 2 more notches? That was the limit used by senior-level water types to break through their plateaus. My Magikarp was only 2 weeks old. The electric grid could kill him. I didn't hesitate. Do it. I'll take full responsibility if anything goes wrong. I pressed the timer in my hand. Fatty Wong swallowed hard. He didn't dare cross a big spender like me. He walked to the console and pushed the lever. The turbines let out a deafening roar. The water speed skyrocketed. Blue high-voltage nets flickered underwater, creating a deadly minefield. Magikarp didn't slow down. He let out a low, muffled roar. His muscles bulged. He slammed into the terrifying water pressure and smashed through the first electric net with raw force. The system chimed. Stamina overloaded. Lightning stimulation triggered. Experience plus 50. Then, a beautiful sound echoed in my mind. Experience is full. A blinding white light of leveling up exploded from the bottom of the pool. The powerful shockwave sent a 3-meter wall of water crashing upward. The spray drenched the high platform, soaking me completely. Would you like to hear what happens after the light fades in the next chapter?